Hello everybody, Sparkster1701 here. We're continuing our look into the Legacy line with another Generation 1 classic being reintroduced. This is Skids. And of course, Skids is a relatively forgotten character, partially also not helped by the fact by how he was portrayed in the second live-action feature of Michael Bay's Transformer films, Revenge of the Fallen, where he was done up as one of the two ghetto Transformers, who should have been predominantly shot early in the film and been done with. Unfortunately, that's the kind of thinking Michael Bay doesn't do when he makes his movies. But at any rate, let's take a look up more into the background and origins of this character. This is Skids' original toy. Skids was released back in 1985. And unfortunately, Skids was one of them that was kind of left out for things, because he only appeared in 2 episodes of the Generation 1 cartoon. And both times that he was in it, he was portrayed by a different actor. And that was mainly due to the fact that he was being brought up during the transition from 1984 to 1985. So he really didn't get a lot of screen time, and nobody really knew what to do with him. It also didn't help with the fact of how Hasbro was packaging Skids. Skids was the odd man out in a lot of the cases that were being sold to stores. Most Transformer toys would be packaged to a case. In the case of the Autobot cars and their price point, there would probably be somewhere between 6 to 8 robots in each box. So there were 2 different boxes, and with those 2 boxes, you would at least get one of everybody. In the case of Skids, he was only packaged 1 to a case. So one of his traveling buddies would have a 3rd toy packaged in instead. So that made Skids relatively rare, since he would only be 1 to a case. But since he would be on the shelves until 1987, you had a relatively decent chance of finding him, if you really wanted him. The only other Transformer to be packaged like that was the Target Master version of Scourge. And since that Scourge was only available for 1 year, as you can imagine, he is quite rare and commands a lot of money. Skids primarily functions as a theoretician, so he's primarily coming up with theories about various things, and he has a broad scope for learning. So there was a chance that he could have been used better in the series to encourage more learning. However, unfortunately, he was treated as just a boring character and was more or less relegated to being to making side appearances, if any at all. Skids is also famous for the fact that he is one of the many Transformers that came out in 1985 that he had his own unique alternate mode. Out of all the Autobot cars, only Skids and Trax were the only ones to be released in 1985 that had a unique alternate mode. Everybody else that was released was either borrowing a similar alternate mode and transformation from a 1984 character, or shared one with a similarly released character from 1985. Skids is also one of the many characters in the 1985 line that came out with more weapons than he could hold. So I got Skids here armed with 2 of his guns. He also came with a rocket launcher. But since he does not have holes in his fists, all of his weapons have to be mounted to his arms. And it's rather difficult to get all 3 of them positioned on his arms. So unfortunately, Skids kind of got short end of the deal here. At any rate, while there have been several other Skids toys made to resemble the Generation 1 version or be built off of it, this is the latest one, and it's actually a pretty good figure when you get down to it. Like its original, he does come with 3 weapons, but at least his guns can be combined together to form 1 weapon. And then, of course, he also has the axe, which we just recently featured in our RC video, since it can be combined with her shield. It looks rather silly like that, but hey, it works. At any rate, let's take a look at Skids' weaponry. And we will start here with his Energon axe. It is a relatively interesting looking weapon. It's just kind of silly with how it's handled. I mean, with it having something that looks like a gun barrel here at the end of it, and of course we have this protrusion back here where the hand grip would hold. Now I know there are going to be some people that are going to be a little tense about us talking about guns with the recent shooting that happened in Uvalde. And I can tell everybody now, my thoughts and prayers are with all those people that suffered down there. But this is a toy review, and we do need to continue with talking about it. If we want to talk stances on weaponry, that's for another channel. That's not here. We don't talk controversy here. Especially if it does not apply to our Transformers. And we're not going to make it. Okay, next step is to take a look at the guns themselves. We've got them combined here into their super weapon form. But they do detach, because they are placed in the box separately. I've just got them stuck together pretty good. Wiggle, wiggle. Okay, here's the single-barreled weapon. And it's basically just a small pistol of sorts. It's kind of hollowed here at the bottom, and there's the hole where the other gun would attach. And then, of course, like his Generation 1 counterpart, he has a double-barreled gun. Almost looks like a mini missile launcher. Which goes well for Skids, since his other weapon was a rocket launcher, so I guess you could pretend it is one. Alright, let's take a look here at Skids and take a look at his articulation, and he has considerably better articulation than his original form. His head can be turned from side to side. It is on a small ball joint, so it will rock up and down a bit. His arms can be raised out all the way up above his head. And his arms do rotate at the shoulder. But as you see, you will have to move the car door out of the way to get it fully rotated. He does have articulation at the elbow, so you can bend his arm at the elbow 90 degrees. Excuse me. And he does have a swivel at the bicep, so he does have G.I. Joe style battle grip. You can twist him at the hips, so he does have some dance moves going there. We can spread his legs apart almost into a full splits. He does have a twisted articulation here at his thigh. You can raise his leg up at the hip about 90 degrees, and you can bend him at the knee 90 degrees. So he does have some excellent articulation going for him. Okay, now it's time to transform Skids into his alternate mode. To do that, we gotta straighten his arms out. And then we bring them out to the sides, like so. Because then we're going to rotate them at the shoulder so that the front tires are now pointing upwards. Then we're going to turn his arms at the bicep so that now we can see his fists again. And then we detach the chest piece and we're going to fold it up like so. And then now comes the fun part as we pivot him to the side, because we're going to bend him at the hip like so. So it kind of almost looks like you've got a walking car. Or a mechanical hunchback. It's Quasimodo. I'm here to ring your bells. Now, of course, once we've done that, we got to bend him at the hip, where the hip section folds inwards. Like that. Shrink him down. Now, of course, once we've done that, you can attach his legs together. Gotta make sure they're straight so you get them lined up nice and properly. And of course, once you've done that, we'll come up here to his arms. You're gonna fold the arms inwards. Got the one a little too far in. And then we rotate the arms so they come down. Just like that. And now we're going to come down here to his legs and fold down these black pieces like so. And once you've done that, then we fold him down at the legs like so that we can bring him in. We adjust his roof plate here so that it folds to the back. And it should line up and connect with a nice loud snap, as you just heard. Then we're going to turn him over for a second because we're going to fold out his back tires. And then you simply, to finish it off, close the doors. Here we go. And he is in his alternate mode, which is to resemble a 1983 Honda City Turbo, which was the exact model that the original car was. The only added feature is that the original had an opening hatchback, because the original Takara-made toy from the 1970s in Japan of what would become Skids also included a foldable little scooter that could be featured in the back. Unfortunately, the scooter was taken out from the Hasbro release. Unfortunately, Hasbro decided not to carry over the opening hatchback on this version of Skids. So unfortunately, that kind of stinks. But we also get the option of we can mount all the weapons on. You can combine the guns together, as well as add on the Energon Axe to form a super weapon that can be attached to the roof. But you gotta push that in all the way so that it will allow the post to fit on the roof. Or you can go a different route, as they also showed in the instructions. The instructions also show you can mount the double gun on the one side. You mount the single gun over here. And then you position the axe on top. And there you have it. You get a well-armed Honda City Turbo. Of course, how does this modern Skids roll on the table? He actually rolls pretty good, surprisingly. Even though he's got all plastic tires, whereas his G1 original has rubber tires. As for my thoughts on Skids, Skids is unfortunately one of those characters that suffers from being left out by the wayside. Since, like we stated earlier, he was brought about during the transition, and unfortunately, despite the fact that he was rather unique and different, he was rather forgotten about. And unfortunately, thanks to people like Michael Bay, the character has a bad rep due to his portrayal in the live-action films. But this isn't that version of Skids. This version of Skids was more prone to daydreaming and thinking. Unfortunately, he did a lot of that while he was driving around in his car mode. Thankfully, he had good brakes. So it kind of prevented most of the fender benders that he would get into. So he was a lot less of an annoying character, and it's kind of sad that Netflix did not decide to do a new Transformer cartoon for the Legacy line, because it would have been nice to see Skids get a chance to redeem himself and introduce himself to a new generation of fans. So while the old toy itself wasn't the best, it was still a fairly fun toy. This one is as well, and I think unfortunately it's also going to wind up being forgotten by the wayside. Maybe perchance that is Skids' destiny. At any rate, that's my review of the Legacy version of Skids. I hope you all enjoyed it. Please do remember that if you like the content that is featured on this channel, we would appreciate it if you'd like, share, comment, and subscribe. We do appreciate the feedback here. This is Sparkster1701 saying I will catch you all later.